if you're going to thrive, you got to make sure the people around you are thriving. It's hard to get rich in the desert. It's hard to do good works, in the middle of the ocean by yourself. Well, I'm Mike Scanlon. I'm the retired CEO from Thomas & King and recovering Vice Mayor of Lexington and a real estate developer, and mostly retired from that. I was a corporate brat growing up. My family moved every couple of years. My father worked for one of the world's biggest construction companies. So I never really got to go to the same school for more than 2 years in a row. I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I wanted to be self-employed. So through most of high school, I worked a lot and had a good time working and focused more on that than I did on high school. So yeah, I graduated from a great high school in Indianapolis and was able to get in college because I scored well on my SATs. But yeah, really did finish in the bottom 10% of the class. I don't know if that's a great story for everybody in high school to know, but it's a great story for kids that just are not real engaged in high school, because the academic world is not like the business world and not like the political world. Academics see the world through a different lens, as well they should, because they bring something to the table that's important. I got my real estate license when I was 24. Being a self-employed real estate broker, even though I worked for a really great company in Greenville, South Carolina, you are basically an entrepreneur. You make your own business. Some of the complex transactions were great educations for me. The job I had before I went off on my own, I loved the job. The work was great, but the ownership of the company just was off-center, and I didn't feel good about how the company was run and how they treated their customers and how they treated their employees. And I wanted to have more control over, good people get rewarded, and you build a culture of people working together and collaborating, instead of competing with each other and trying to get in front of each other. You push each other up instead of try to push each other out of the way. I had no concept we'd wind up with 100 restaurants. I was hoping maybe we'd get to 6, and that would be plenty. That would be, my goodness, that would be successful. The journey is what fuels you. Having a positive work environment, working in an arena that you enjoy, having an impact, looking around you and saying, hey, this is making a difference. That's where the energy comes from to get through the crises, to get through the ugly moments. The impact makes it worth oh, this is awful. Why am I doing this? It's kind of like going to the gym, no pain, no gain. That's what gives you the energy to keep going through the hard spots. You get the money along the way to pay the bills. And yeah, I can't say I didn't enjoy the money, because I did and I still do, but it was the experience of how we got it that really gave us the fuel to keep going. I think Tubby Smith phrased it real well in a talk that he gave to all of us. He looked for coachable players that could be coached. We looked for people that were willing to learn, that were open, but we were also looking for people that were better than us at what we do. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, I don't need everybody. Then they're minions. It was my job to get people with the right skills and provide an environment they could thrive. And that's really what set us apart. Is how can we make this so you can do your best work? And then you just make sure you put someone in there who really can see the tools and come and use them. The people that influenced me the most were the people on the ground, the people that worked for us. Those were the most influential people, and those were the ones that made us successful. When I talked to them, they taught me so much about what their world really was like. Because I never waited on a table when we started the company. I'd never poured a drink. I never managed a store. I never executed a payroll. When they let me know what made their job hard, it made my job easy. And that's the influence that really mattered. It wasn't some Zig Ziglar conference I went to. I did go to stuff like that. All that was important. But the big influencers were the people on the ground The more you care, the more people thrive. And if you're in a thriving environment, you're more likely to thrive. So you want to make sure the environment around you is healthy, because that's what keeps you healthy. Doesn't mean it's fun every day. Doesn't mean that every day you get a massage and a pizza. But if you're going to thrive, you got to make sure the people around you are thriving. It's hard to get rich in the desert. It's hard to do good works, in the middle of the ocean by yourself. And then, there's the spirituality part of, you've really been able to make a boatload here. You've got to give some back. Sometimes you give back because the employees want you to, and it builds belonging because you're giving to things that the employees believe in, and they give too. And it's one more common bond, and it gave them experiences outside the company. It developed them as people to be a big brother or to be a big sister, or to enjoy the reward of building a habitat house. Always, the whole time, there's the culture side that energized me the most, that I enjoyed. But it was at the end of the day, when we're evaluating the business, you can't take your eye off the metrics. You can't take your eyes off how things are going, because the way you're operating the environment is going to affect the metrics. And if the metrics are off, you can tell you're doing something wrong in the environment. One of the big aha moments I had is I really thought I was keeping my eye on the numbers. Right at the beginning of the 2008 explosions, when the banks were folding and the mortgages were going crazy, and our chief administrative officer, who I'd worked with for a long, long time, came in the office and said, "We just lost $1 million last month." And she just looked at me with a real deep Southern accent and said, "This won't stand." And I was just shocked that, how could I not see that? Well, it was happening. Had I watched it differently, I would have realized this is a sign of something. This isn't just a bump in the road. Well, it's a bump in the road. We always do good. Oh, we weathered that before. Oh, it'll be okay. Hope is not a good strategy. Believing in the best is good for the getting energy, but it's not a good conclusion when you're seeing bad numbers. And I don't mean to make this a conversation just about restaurants, because that same thing applies to a lot of businesses. We had a big sales month because we sold 7 pieces of machinery for $8 million a piece. We only had 2 customers, and boy, the customers are getting thinner. And where's our market? When the guest count started going down after 15, 20 years of them going up, and they started coming down, it's a marketing mismatch. Oh, no, don't believe that. We laid off 17 people in the home office in one day who did absolutely nothing to provoke getting laid off. That was, we had to figure out who did and who didn't. If you're part of the decision, you got to be part of the execution. And when you know that, okay, I'm going to make the decision to fire somebody, I got to be the one to face them. That's one of those moments you better be sure you're doing this right, because you're going to have to look them in the eye. Now, I got to tell you, I've got to let you go, because if I don't let you go, the whole organism is going to die. And no, it's nothing you did wrong. It's just the situation. So yeah, that was dark moments. I could have seen it coming if I believed the numbers were as bad as they looked. And the problem with me in that is, that's not like me. That's not it. So I didn't do enough critical thinking with myself. And that was an aha moment. And every founder that survives, that has a long run, is going to have those dark moments. And I don't think everybody talks to founders about where are you going to get the emotional energy, where are you going to get the intellectual and rational skills to go through those dark moments, because they're going to come if you're there long enough. I felt more at peace at things like we would have big conventions for our managers and assistants. We'd have hundreds and hundreds of people there. And I'd look out and say, gee, these guys like their job. They're content. They're not angry. They're happy with the world. There was a big peaceful feeling when that happened. We'd cash the big check. It was celebratory. I felt really good. I remember once we sold some stuff, and I was able to pay off my house. And I really went to just almost, I think, every wall in the house and touched it. It said, paid for, paid for, paid for, paid for. But it wasn't that sense of I made it. It was that sense of peacefulness. That, gee, I can enjoy this. But that comes and goes. There's never one moment where you say I've made it and it's permanent. A gambler, like somebody that loves to go to Las Vegas and gamble, I mean, they're having a thrill. They're hoping to get rewarded, but they're there for the experience. The thrill of watching that roulette wheel go around or dropping exactly the right card, hitting the jackpot. But they come back time and time again, even if they lose. Gambling is a thrill. It's an entertainment thing, where being an entrepreneur, you're doing something you feel really strongly about, and you do it with the expectation of a reward. The thrill is okay because the thrill is transient. Sometimes that thrill is not so positive; it's a negative. But you have an end in mind. Entrepreneurs, by definition, bring something new to the table, something that isn't there, and it's filling a need. If an entrepreneur is going to be successful, there is a need getting met. So it keeps a community alive. If everybody does the same old thing the same old way, every city you go to or every large environment you go to, you can see it beginning to fail because nothing happens that freshens it up. People were open-minded to the idea of a casual restaurant. People were open-minded to the concept of a foam mattress. What is a foam mattress? Well, it turned out Tempur-Pedic knew exactly what one was, and look how they've grown. I mean, they just acquired another company here recently. Being open to new ideas. Alltech, craft beer, West 6th, they were selling craft beer before people really knew what craft beer was. Well, people were open to the idea. They tried it out. They weren't closed. It's not a community. We're always going to do what we've always done, and something new isn't welcome. So the community has to be open to it. The local government has to be open to it. Where's someone going to put their business? Where are you going to put a brewery? You mean you want to put one downtown? Well, you've got to be open to thoughts like that. So it's open-mindedness and willing to try and willing to trust. That's what the community can do.